Welcome to the deep dive. You know, if you've ever looked at a medical scan, say an x-ray of a broken arm, there's this really comforting precision to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's very cut and dry.
Right. You see that jagged white line on the black background, and the pathology is just, it's undeniable. It's binary. The bone is broken or it isn't.
Right.
But the second you step out of orthopedics and into the realm of neuroscience, specifically, the mechanics of human consciousness, that comforting precision just completely evaporates.
It really does. It gets incredibly murky.
Yeah, you ask a seemingly foundational question, like what exactly is a single thought? Does it have physical weight? Does it have a shape? And suddenly, the diagnostic imaging isn't so simple anymore.
No, not at all. The clinical landscape for consciousness is notoriously ambiguous. For centuries, really, the scientific community just relegated the whole concept of a thought to philosophy.
Or,
psychology.
It's just some abstract concept.
Exactly. It was treated as an emergent property, like a ghost in the biological machine. It definitely wasn't treated as a quantifiable physical entity that you could isolate under a microscope.
Which is exactly what brings us to the centerpiece of today's deep dive for you guys listening. We are unpacking a staggeringly ambitious stack of source material today.
Ambitious is definitely the word for it.
It really is. It's an excerpt detailing the, let me get the full title right, The Theory of Quantum Biophoton Light Streak of Thoughts and Dimensional Transformation.
Quite a mouthful.
Yeah, specifically Theory 38. And this is a framework developed by Swami Vivekananda in collaboration with the Gemini AI. And it attempts something just massive.
It does. It synthesizes astrophysics, quantum biology, and advanced neuroimaging into this one unified theorem of consciousness.
And the sheer scale of that synthesis is what makes this text so compelling to analyze. They are taking macro-universal mechanics, like relying on actual observational data from the James Webb Space Telescope.
Right, and they map that directly onto the microscopic neural networks of the human brain.
It's wild. They construct this dimensional topography, introducing concepts like -4D and -5D spaces, basically to argue that the cosmos and the human mind are structurally isomorphic.
Meaning they mirror each other fundamentally.
Exactly. It is a phenomenal claim. So our mission for you today is to rigorously deconstruct Theory 38. We are going to trace the entire physical life cycle of a thought.
Right, from its birth.
Yes, how it originates, the mechanics of how it travels through different dimensions of space-time, and how it ultimately encodes itself into your biological hardware.
But before we get completely lost in the cosmic architecture here, we really should establish the boundaries of our analysis.
Good point. Let's do that.
Yeah, setting parameters is crucial for this one. Given the origins of this text, it would be very easy to veer off into metaphysical or spiritual interpretations.
Which we are not doing.
Right. We are intentionally leaving those aside today. Our focus is squarely on the empirical framework provided in the source material.
Just the raw data.
Exactly. The raw neurophysics, the quantum biology data, the mathematical models of space-time. We are strictly looking at the mechanics of human consciousness as a physical phenomenon.
Okay, so if we're going to evaluate the claim that a thought can, travel across multiple dimensions, the logical starting point is proving that a thought physically exists in our standard 3D world, right?
Yes. You have to know the composition of the vehicle before you can track its movement.
Right. So what is the physical anatomy of a thought?
Well, modern neuroscience, utilizing high-resolution fMRI and advanced EEG scans, provides our first major paradigm shift here. The data reveals that a discrete, single thought does not actually exist in the brain.
Which is so counterintuitive because, that challenges our everyday perception. When I think about picking up my coffee mug, I perceive that as one isolated command.
Right, but the imaging suggests we're not looking at a static point of data. We are looking at continuous neural network oscillations.
So it's dynamic.
Highly dynamic. It's a spatiotemporal pattern. You're looking at millions of neurons firing in highly synchronized waves across the cerebral cortex. The biological reality is just this constant shifting topography.
I always I visualize it kind of like a river system. Like you can't scoop out a single molecule of H2O, hold it up, and tell someone, hey, I am holding the river.
That's a great analogy.
Right, because the phenomenon of the river is the flow itself. But here is the critical pushback against conventional neuroscience. Okay, it is a flow. But a flow of what?
Ah, right.
Because if it's purely electrochemical, just, sodium and potassium ions trading places across a membrane, how does that translate into the subjective experience of an idea?
That is the hard problem of consciousness right there.
Exactly. Are we just talking about abstract data, or is there another form of physical matter moving through these pathways?
Well, the source material addresses that exact mechanical gap, and it points to a physical reality observed through advanced cellular imaging.
Which blew my mind when I read it.
It's incredible. When neuroscientists utilize techniques like optogenetics or deep tissue calcium imaging, they observe that synaptic communication isn't strictly chemical or electrical.
Okay, so what is it?
During the metabolic process of an action potential, neurons emit physical light.
So we aren't just talking about electrical impulses anymore.
Well,
The brain tissue is actively emitting literal biophotons.
ultra-weak biophoton emissions, yes. Yeah. They are discrete packets of electromagnetic energy.
Wow.
As a neural network processes information, it generates these flashes of microscopic light that actually propagate down the axonal pathways. The brain functions way less like a copper wire electrical grid and much more like an advanced fiber optic network.
Let's ground this for you listening right now because this is huge. This means your thoughts are not physically heavy, but they aren't like ethereal ghosts either.
Right, they have a physical reality.
They are energy and information vectors traveling as electromagnetic waves. I mean, think about the physiological cascade of a panic attack.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
You perceive a threat, and instantly your heart rate spikes, your palms sweat. That isn't just some abstract concept causing a physical reaction.
No, it's highly mechanical.
The geometric pattern of ultra-weak light cascading from your prefrontal cortex down your central nervous system and into your peripheral nerves. That structural geometry of light is the thought itself.
And the text is completely unambiguous on this point.
Huh?
The thought does not generate the biophoton emission as some sort of byproduct. The biophoton streak is the foundational architecture of the thought.
Which forces a radical shift in how we have to analyze the brain from here on out. Because if a thought is literally constructed of light, we have to apply the laws of physics governing light.
We do. And you cannot discuss the physics of light without discussing relativity in time.
Exactly. And this is where Theory 38 pulls us out of the 3D biological brain and introduces the mechanics of the fourth dimension.
Right. To understand the temporal mechanics here, the authors invoke Einstein's model of the block universe, which is also known in physics as eternalism.
Okay, let's unpack that for everyone.
Sure. So in our standard 3D sensory experience, we perceive time as a linear progression, right? Things happen in the past, we experience the present, and we wait for the future.
Like a one-way street.
Exactly. But in a four-dimensional geometric model, time does not flow. It is a static spatial coordinate. It's the w-axis, plotted completely orthogonal to our standard x, y, and z dimensions.
Meaning time is literally just another navigable direction mapped out just like latitude or longitude.
Precisely. The mathematics of the block universe dictate that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously.
Which is so hard to wrap your head around.
It is, but mathematically, an object's entire existence, from the moment it's created to its destruction, is stretched out as a static, frozen object in this 4D space. Physicists call it a world line.
It's such a brilliant way to conceptualize human memory when you tie it back to the brain, because our physical 3D bodies are heavily constrained. We are locked onto that linear track, moving forward at a constant speed.
We can't step off the track.
Right. You cannot physically walk your body back to a coffee shop you visited a decade ago. But your thoughts, because we just established they are constructed of light, they operate like a drone flying high above that linear track.
I like that analogy.
The drone is untethered from those immediate physical constraints. It can instantly dart backward along the W-axis to render a childhood memory or accelerate forward to simulate a future event with virtually zero temporal drag.
And the behavior of light in a relativistic framework completely supports that analogy. Because from the perspective of a photon traveling at light speed, time dilation reaches infinity. Time effectively stops.
So the photon doesn't experience time at all.
Exactly. The photon's point of emission and its point of absorption exist simultaneously to it. Light perceives the 4D block universe as a unified whole. And what's amazing is that neuroimaging provides striking empirical support for this untethered temporal movement in the human brain.
You're referring to the mechanics of the default mode network, right?
No.
The DMN.
Yes. The DMN is the neurological system that becomes active when we are awake, but we're not focused on the outside world. So daydreaming, remembering.
Right.
When researchers place subjects in an fMRI and asks them to recall a very specific, detailed memory from their past, the scans show a highly specific geometric activation pattern.
Okay.
But then, they ask those same subjects to construct a vivid, imagined scenario 10 years in their future.
And the resulting scans are essentially identical.
Completely identical.
Which is crazy. The neurological hardware does not distinguish between a past event and a future simulation.
No, it doesn't.
The biophoton pathways overlay the spatial maps for both of those timelines perfectly. The brain treats time not as a flowing river to fight against, but as a traversable, flat spatial plane. Your neural light is already operating within the parameters of 4D spacetime.
The navigation is seamless because the medium, which is light, is inherently unbound by linear temporal flow.
But this introduces a massive biological problem, doesn't it?
It introduces several, yes.
Because if human consciousness is this continuous high-speed drone flight of 4D light, just navigating past and future constantly, how does the system avoid catastrophic burnout?
Right. It has to be a recovery state.
Yeah, what is the thermodynamic reset? If we track the dimensional life cycle of a thought, we have to ask, what happens to this light when we enter deep sleep?
And the authors map the human sleep cycle to dimensional physics to explain that exact reset mechanism.
Okay, walk us through that.
The baseline is slow-wave sleep, specifically what we call NREM stages 3 and 4.
Right, so this is the deepest phase of unconsciousness, where you are entirely unresponsive to environmental stimuli. Like, you are out cold.
You are out. And the neurological activity during this phase drops into delta waves, which oscillate incredibly slowly, just between 0.5 and 4 hertz.
Barely moving.
Barely. But more critically, the sophisticated cellular metabolism required to generate biophotons halts. The cerebral cortex goes totally dark. The text defines this state as the 0D singularity. It is a zero-dimensional coordinate. It's a state of absolute neural silence and spatial stillness. Without light emission, the architecture of thought simply ceases to exist.
Which poses a totally fascinating mechanical question for me. Because how on earth does the brain transition from that absolute 0D vacuum, that total darkness and silence, into the hyper-vivid, chaotic environment of a dream state?
It's a very violent transition, biologically speaking. It correlates with the onset of REM sleep, rapid eye movement.
Right.
The physiological trigger for this is the thalamus, which acts as the brain's central relay station. During REM, the thalamus essentially reignites. It floods the cortex with signals and triggers rapid, intense bursts of biophoton emission.
And Theory 38 models this ignition using the mathematics of string theory, right?
And you do, yes.
Which actually maps perfectly, considering string theory models fundamental particles like photons, not as zero-dimensional dots, but as one-dimensional vibrating strings of energy. So when the thalamus fires, it is violently casting these 1D strings of light out of that 0D void.
And the resonant frequencies of those 1D strings dictate the manifestation of matter and force in theoretical physics. In the brain, the geometric weaving of these 1D biophoton strings actually constructs the subjective environment of the dream.
I want you to consider the immense computational power required for that process. Your physical body is paralyzed due to REM atonia. You are lying in a dark room.
Completely stationary.
Yet inside the perimeter of your skull, your thalamus is weaving these 1D strings of light at such incomprehensible speeds that they render a fully immersive 3D virtual space-time canvas.
A completely generated reality.
You can perceive the texture of a rock in your dream, gauge the distance of a mountain, experience gravitational physics, all within a localized 3D simulation built entirely out of trapped light.
It functions as a fully internalized virtual reality engine. The one-dimensional streaks of light interact to synthesize a three-dimensional conscious environment.
It's just incredible.
It is. But the simulation isn't static, right? It is highly dynamic. The brain continuously calculates behavioral outcomes and potential scenarios within that dream and in waking life.
Right.
So to model how the brain simultaneously processes infinite variables like that, the theory scales up from the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension.
And this requires a shift in how we visualize the light itself. Because in 4D, we discussed the time snake, that single frozen world line.
Right.
But in 5D space, the geometry of light expands. The authors describe it as a probability density cloud.
Yes. And the physics underlying this align perfectly with Hugh Everett's many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Okay, the multiverse concept.
Exactly. A probability density cloud represents a state of quantum superposition. In a 5D framework, light doesn't just trace a single path. It represents every possible path simultaneously.
So every potential choice, every branching timeline.
Yes, and every parallel outcome exists overlaid in this massive, uncollapsed state of potential energy.
Let's apply that 5D superposition directly to the function of, say, your prefrontal cortex. Imagine you are deliberating a major life choice.
Okay.
Say you're deciding between moving across the country for a new job versus staying in your current role. During that deliberation, your brain doesn't just evaluate one option, discard it, and then evaluate the next, right?
No, it holds multiple complex simulations active simultaneously.
Exactly. You are cognitively inhabiting the new city while simultaneously maintaining the neural framework of your current life. That neurological state of suspended indecision is literally a localized micro-reflection of a 5D probability cloud.
That's a great way to put it.
All those potential timelines are slightly active in the neural network at the exact same time.
And they remain in superposition until the precise moment of decision.
The collapse.
Yes. The observer's conscious choice functions as the quantum measurement operator. In quantum mechanics, interacting with the superposition causes decoherence, or what we call wave function collapse. By making the choice, the observer forces the infinite swirling 5D cloud of possibilities to collapse into a single, definitive 3D physical reality.
And the unchosen timelines.
They're just prunes from the network.
So the act of observation physically shapes the architecture of the universe.
It does. And furthermore, the mathematics of special relativity apply here too. As we noted earlier, for a photon, dt equals 0, time does not pass.
Right, time has stopped.
Because the observer's consciousness is comprised of this biophoton field interacting directly with the 5D probability cloud, the exact moment of wave function collapse occurs completely outside of linear time.
Wow.
The authors define this state as a non-dual information isomorphism.
Okay, we need to unpack isomorphism because that is really the crux of the whole theory here. An isomorphism basically means two complex structures map perfectly onto one another, preserving all relational data. So in this context, it implies there is absolutely zero separation between the structural geometry of the universe collapsing into a reality and the structural geometry of the biophotons in your brain making the choice.
They are one and the same.
The observer and the observed are the exact same physical event.
The neural light is not merely observing the universe. It is the universe observing itself, collapsing probability into certainty.
It is such a staggering theoretical framework, but I have to say, it invites a massive logistical pushback.
I'm sure it does. Where do you see the flaw?
Well, if human consciousness is continuously interacting with and collapsing infinite 5D multiversal data, we run into a severe hardware limitation.
The storage problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
How does a 3-pound biological organ, constrained by the dimensions of a human skull, physically store the data of a 5D probability cloud? I mean, the spatial math just doesn't work.
You're completely right. The density of information would exceed the physical capacity of traditional synaptic storage instantly. The brain would overload.
Right, it would just explode.
But Theory 38 addresses this paradox through a biological mechanism they call holographic downsampling.
Now, we use downsampling in digital media all the time, right? Like compressing a massive 4K video file so it can fit onto a standard hard drive without losing the core structure of the footage.
Exactly the same principle.
But we are talking about compressing dimensional space-time into biological tissue. How?
The mechanism operates at the subatomic level. Specifically, it targets the molecular structure of our DNA. The theory isolates these things called pi electron clouds, which are located within the base pairs of the DNA double helix.
Okay, wait. The structural chemistry of DNA involves alternating double and single bonds, which creates these ring structures, right?
Yes.
And the electrons in those rings aren't tethered to a single atom. They become delocalized, forming these pi electron clouds.
That's spot on. And because they are delocalized, these electron clouds function as a quantum trap.
A quantum trap.
Yes, they are capable of maintaining highly stable states of quantum superposition. The theory posits that the collapsed 5D multiversal data is holographically downsampled and encoded directly into the spin states of those delocalized electrons.
That is wild.
So the DNA doesn't just store genetic blueprints for, hair color or height. It acts as a high-density quantum hard drive capable of storing multidimensional information completely outside of physical spatial constraints.
This totally upgrades that common analogy of DNA as a computer's zip file. The data isn't just compressed, it actually exists in a state of quantum suspension.
Precisely.
But okay, just having a massive zip file hidden on your hard drive is useless if you don't possess the decompression software to open it, right?
That's the catch.
If all this infinite 5D data is locked in our pi electron clouds right now, why aren't we consciously aware of our alternate timelines while going about our daily routines? Like, why don't I remember the universe where I didn't drink coffee this morning?
Well, the data remains inaccessible during normal waking states due to something called the quantum decoherence shield.
Okay.
The text draws heavily here on the ORCOR theory. That's the Orchestrated Objective Reduction Model developed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hamroff.
Oh, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, so ORCOR identifies microtubules, which are these microscopic structural lattices inside our neurons, as the actual site of quantum processing in the brain.
So the information from the DNA is transferred and locked inside these microtubules as really delicate quantum oscillations.
Yes, but when you are awake, your brain is flooded with high-frequency beta and alpha waves.
Just from dealing with the world.
Exactly. The sheer electromagnetic noise of processing a 3D environment creates a decoherent shield. The macro-level brainwaves essentially drown out the micro-level quantum signals inside those microtubules.
So to read the data, the system requires specialized hardware capable of bypassing that shield.
Correct. And Theory 38 maps this hardware to negative dimensions. Specifically, it designates the thalamus as a -8D anchor and the cerebrospinal fluid, the CSF, as a -9D fluid matrix.
I have to admit, the concept of negative dimensions sounds totally counterintuitive.
It does sound like sci-fi.
But in this physical model, it just represents an involution, right? Instead of scaling outward into the macro universe, a negative dimension scales infinitely inward into the microscopic subquantum geometry of the body.
Exactly. It's a dive inward. And when a subject enters a state of profound neurological coherence, the text refers to the ancient concept of turiya, which modern neuroscience observes as highly synchronized whole brain phase locking.
Like deep, deep meditation.
Yes. When you achieve that, the decoherent shield drops. The environmental noise just ceases. And in that state, extreme quiet, the thalamus and the CSF matrix operate in tandem to interface directly with the microtubules.
So they act as the biological decompression engine. They unlock that pi electron data.
They unzip the file.
Yes. And the physical manifestation of that unzipping process is a sudden burst of biophotons. The 5D data is translated back into 1D light.
And we experience this biologically as a profound flash of intuition.
Or an unexplainable gut instinct.
Or a highly prophetic dream state. It is literally the compressed probability cloud of the multiverse flashing across your visual cortex.
Which fundamentally redefines intuition, not as some random guess, but as the successful retrieval of downsampled multiversal data.
It changes everything about how we view human insight.
Let's synthesize the entirety of Theory 38 for everyone listening, because the scale of this framework is just breathtaking. We've established that a thought is not a ghost. It is an ultra-weak quantum biophoton streak.
A physical entity of light.
Right. It originates from the absolute neural silence of the 0D singularity during deep sleep. It ignites as 1D strings of energy to construct the 3D virtual simulations of our dreams.
Right.
Because it is constituted of light, it bypasses the linear constraints of 4D spacetime, allowing consciousness to navigate past and future simultaneously.
Seamless.
And at the moment of choice, this light interacts with the 5D probability cloud, collapsing infinite timelines into a single reality through non-dual information isomorphism, a reality which is then holographically downsampled and stored in the quantum electron clouds of our very DNA.
It is a truly remarkable model. It demonstrates how the macro architecture of the cosmos requires the microscopic biology of the observer to collapse probability into existence.
The implications are staggering, and it leaves me with one final, deeply provocative question for you listening to consider.
Let's hear it.
If the mechanics of this theory hold true, if the pi electron clouds in every cell of your body actually serve as a highly compressed quantum hard drive containing 5D multiversal memories and collapsed alternate timelines, what is the future of human society?
That is the big question.
What happens if an evolutionary leap or, a targeted neurotechnology allows us to permanently bypass the quantum decoherence shield while fully awake? What happens to human interaction if you could suddenly unzip and read not just your own multidimensional history, but instantly access the biological hard drives of every person in the room with you?
We would transition from isolated observers into a fully integrated open source universe.
A complete dissolution of boundaries. Well, thank you for joining us on this exploration of the true physics of thought. Keep analyzing, keep questioning the mechanics of reality, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.